Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. How to start working full-time if your boss is uncomfortable with it. The OP from the first story will tell us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go. I can only work 29 hours a week but have full-time responsibilities? Okay, boss. I, 23-year-old female, started a new job last summer as a part-time fellow with the possibility of going full-time. I was hired to replace someone who was full-time, so my responsibilities were much greater than the time that I was allotted to work, which was 29 hours a week. Basically, my bosses kept piling work on me, and since this was my first job out of college, I finished it, but was basically working full-time for about a week and a half. I had flagged the issue with them, and they told me to reflect the time on my timesheet. Fast forward to payday, my bosses are livid that I work so much, saying that I had to stay at exactly 29 hours to be a part-time employee. Cue the malicious compliance. I started vehemently tracking my hours. I would plan my weeks in advance, so I knew the maximum amount of hours that I could work each day to stay at 29 hours. I basically worked from 9:30 to 3:30, but obviously there were days that I had to work longer. When my bosses would give me tasks on Thursday and Fridays, I would say to them, well, I have to leave at 2 p.m. today, so I'm under 29 hours this week. Go home and relax. This obviously made my bosses frustrated since they needed to offload the work, but I was just following exactly what they told me to do. After about 3 weeks of this and multiple tasks not being able to get done because of my strict 29-hour work week, they finally offered me a full-time job. And our next story. It's the Great Pumpkin, Vindictive HOA president. I babysat and elder sat for the neighbors down the street who committed this malicious compliance, so I was there to hear the ranting as this whole mess went down. We'll call my neighbors Liz and Dave. They were nice folks who ran afoul of the Homeowners Association, HOA, when the busybody president who lived next door to them, we'll call her Joan, got it in her rotted turnip for a brain that Liz and Dave had taken in an illegal renter. Renting out rooms was strictly against HOA policy. They had not rented out a room. Liz's elderly mother had moved in with them after breaking her hip and being unable to live alone anymore. Joan sent them a very threatening letter about their unlawful renter and how fines would accrue if the unlawful renter didn't vacate immediately. It was accompanied with a copy of that part of the bylaws and pictures of Liz's elderly mother taken through windows of their house. Creep alert! They wrote back that there was no renter and explained the situation. Joan did not believe that story and had the HOA lawyer start sending them certified letters about their continued violations with ever-increasing insane fines. This went over poorly. Liz and Dave got their own lawyer to fire back a cease and desist letter. After many increasingly aggressive back and forths, it all culminated in an association meeting where Liz, Dave, and Liz's mother came in with ID and birth certificates and basically made Joan look like the pimple on the backside of humanity she was. They won, but Joan was furious and swore she'd get them for something. Joan maintained until the day I left for college, last I knew of her, that Liz and Dave had forged those driver's licenses and birth certificates to keep their unlawful renter. Cut to the following fall. Liz and Dave needed to repaint the house after making some siding repairs post-hurricane. They carefully checked the bylaws for approved paint colors and picked out a fairly bland shade of something between brown and tan. They gave the painters the color info listed in the bylaws, and the painting happened. Less than a week after their house was painted, they got another certified letter from the HOA lawyer stating their house was the wrong color. They fired back evidence they ordered exactly what was in the bylaws. Well, after many back and forths, it turned out the approved color and the swatches on file with the board no longer matched because the manufacturer had changed the colors in their line slightly due to some kind of formula change. Their house was a few shades darker than it should have been. See, the bylaws listed the manufacturer color info for convenience, but the shades actually had to match the official swatches you could have theoretically borrowed from the board and gotten color matched. Nobody ever did that, but Joan was out for blood after the unlawful renter and forced them to have to repaint. Liz and Dave were taking no chances on the second try. They got the swatch set from the HOA. For some reason, it made no distinction between approved accent colors. Most houses in the neighborhood had brightly colored doors or house colors. They decided that if they had to paint their house a second time, Joan, the dog that caught the car, could live next door to the most garish option they had. It was pumpkin orange. The painters asked multiple times if they were sure. They were very sure. You couldn't see the orange from inside, but you sure could from next door. Joan made many attempts to object to this, but it was within the letter of the HOA rules, and the house stayed orange until long after I moved away. And our next story. Cheat me out of a promotion? No job for you. When I was a bonny young whippersnapper, I took a job in a specific kind of administration, which is big in my location and has multiple employers to choose from. By nature, it's quite a limited talent pool, and anyone with more than a few years of experience will see the same faces around as they move jobs. Initially, I was a temporary worker. However, I quickly was offered a full-time position. When offered this by the operations manager, ops man hereafter, it was made explicit to me that I was being offered the tippy top of their entry-level job grade salary. This was presented to me as a jumping-off point to bigger and better things. A year passes, I accept new tasks, and crap starts to hit the fan. It ends up that I am the go-to gal for any payment issue. I would sit at my seat all week being constantly asked to troubleshoot anything going boobs up in the payments. And boy, did we have them. It was awful. Our new system was not feeding the data to payroll correctly. Other work teams would just load things and hope. I would pick up the pieces. I built a process and was effectively deputy of a team allocated to manage all the payments. We didn't F up big for months. They sent me to meet the client and payroll to put in control measures, all way above entry level. Obviously, working considerable overtime too. De facto team leader in the actual TL's absence. In practice, the whole team troubleshooted with me. So I think to myself, I have a good relationship with my TL. Let's ask him my review about going to the next job title up. Shouldn't be a problem, right? This being pro-revenge, the story does not end here. I ask my TL what I need to do for a promotion. He looks at me confused and says, "But you're a grade 2. Why do you think you're a grade 1? Well, Ops Man made it very clear to me when I was made permanent. Let me talk to Ops Man and clear this up. He returns later. I went to Ops Man and he said that we don't have anyone of grade 1. It's not possible. Between you and I, I'm disappointed you've been allowed to believe this. You do a great job. Well, wouldn't you know that I had the very offer letter from HR with me, clearly stating grade 1. TL returns to Ops Man with my letter. I've been shown on the system by Ops Man that you are indeed a grade 2, but there isn't anything Ops Man can give you to prove it. WTF. I interview with a better company over Christmas, have a job by the end of January, and give my notice to my TL. He frankly said that he knows there's nothing he can do to keep me and makes no attempt to. I work my notice, and some of my closer colleagues ask why. The floodgates open about the raging knob jockey that is Ops Man. Stories abound about their crimes against the department. Some of these were so blatant that they were no secret. We, the minions, would regularly be chastised for personal calls on company phones. This person talked to their partner and dogs on the phone all day. Silly crap. The company I left was notified that they lost their contract with their key client within 3 months of my departure. The office closed as a result immediately that the contract ended. Ops Man applied to my company about 9 months later. By then, some of my former colleagues also worked with my new company, some of whom were hired on my recommendation. My manager asked me for my thoughts on Ops Man, as he always did on potential hires from that company. I told him the above story. I even found the letter and gave it to him the next day. I was as nice as pie about it, too. I'm not the best person to ask. There was some confusion about my grade, some further context, and it left a bad taste in the mouth. Don't take my word for it, though. Speak to my dudes, too. See what they say. Yeah, no interview for that candidate. The vacancy applied for was significantly lower grade than their old one. They were still out of work recently, I was told. House in jeopardy, etc. Clearly, this person had burnt more bridges than just mine. Can't even get entry level. And our last story. The tale of how I got paid for months to do nothing. Right after school, me and the 3 other students with maximum grades got hired immediately in an airport company. Our job was to run a simulation program in order to train some specialized personnel. The job's quite easy. It's basically a set of exercises or routines to run over and over on the simulator, and it's really well paid for an 18-year-old first job. The only problem is the program for the simulation was incredibly clunky and slow, and the actual routines had to be prepared on another machine entirely. And the fun part? Apparently no one knows precisely how to create this exercises. We just had to run the simulator, so we just received these exercises, load them on the simulator, and press start. But 60% of the time, they didn't work at all, and that was infuriating and wasted a lot of time. So we, the smart young guys, jump off board and decided to help out, actually spending a lot of our free time helping create these routines and trying to fix the common problems. Well, the percentage of functioning routines jumped up to almost 100%, and the simulator ran smoothly for months. My boss at the time was one of the best human beings I've ever known, and surprise to no one, he was promoted. His substitute, on the other hand, was one of the worst human beings I've ever known, and surprise to no one, he effed up. I'll just focus on the part that concerns me, but he effed up all around. One day, one of those routines wasn't working out at all, and we just couldn't figure out why. Our boss gets called because half a day has gone wasted already. Instead of trying to help, he jumps at us and starts yelling that we're incompetents in front of all the other people. He goes on a long rant which doesn't solve anything, and the training day was called off. Now is when I remembered that my job is to run the simulator, not to create the routines. So malicious compliance kicks in, and, well, after that day, we just stopped giving a crap. Now every day, if the new exercises come in and don't work, we just send it back and wait for a functioning one, which sometimes don't arrive at all. This happened a lot, and I actually spent literally months at work being paid to do nothing, using the time to study for university at the workplace. And the best part is that my boss was fuming because the training schedule went to crap and he couldn't do anything at all. After some time, the boss's boss noticed that something was clearly very wrong, went into his office and absolutely trashed the guy. Then the boss's boss came to us and asked if we wanted to do the extra job of creating the routines for an extra payment, and we said yes, since we already knew what to do. Our boss didn't say anything at all after that, so basically I got a long paid vacation and went back to work with a higher salary. It was glorious. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.